We have the pleasure of having Markus Eisenbauer from Fraunhofer here, and Herman Brandt from ICCI, and Sten Lynskov from our local chairman. So I welcome you all, and thank you so much for taking the time to come here and present at Global Wireless Summit 2016. And take the floor.
Thank you very much. I think I have to turn on this thing. No, can you hear me? Yeah, everything works? Okay, good morning everyone. I think we can make it a little bit more interactive than planned because we are a very small audience. And I wanted to talk a little bit about smart cities. First of all, I wanted to introduce you what we're doing. So basically what we're mainly doing, we're working on Industry 4.0 and how to manage all the wealth of data that you have there. So we have lots of people, of projects in that area. And if you read through this cartoon, this is it's funny, but on the other hand, it describes quite well the situation in industry. And sometimes people are a little bit lost by all the buzzwords. What do they really mean, and what can IoT really provide? So Fraunhofer, for those who don't know, Fraunhofer is the largest applied research institution in Europe. It has more than 80 research institutions. At the moment we have 67 Fraunhofer institutes, more than 24,000 employees. The majority of them educated in natural science or engineering. So and the annual research volume is of 2.4 billion euros, of which 2 billion are generated through contract research. And within this 2 billion, we aim to have 1/3 of this money, so this is the ideal model for a Fraunhofer directly from industry. So as you can see from there, we are working quite applied. So here you have an idea where Fraunhofer is. Okay, mainly it's in Germany, but it's not only in Germany. We have also centers in US, also in several centers in South America and Asia and all over the world. So I'm coming from the middle of this, from St. Augustin, which is basically close to Bonn. Which is almost the same size as Aarhus, and it's better known as the former capital of the Federal Republic of Germany. And this is a picture of my office. So it looks very nice, but no, in reality it's just the administration that sits there. It's like always. So the scientists have to work in a different place. But we have this little castle, and it's very good for venues like comparable to these ones. We are a pure software institute, and our aim, so we distinguish from other software institutes in the Fraunhofer community that we put the user into the center of our development. So, we want to optimize the usefulness, the usability of IT, and to connect this with the daily work and all the processes that are encompassed in it. Which means that sometimes we also don't use IT, because if it turns out that it's not useful, we would not use it. I'm representing the department which is central of the Institute, User-Centered Computing, and we are dealing a lot with. We started with embedded systems as well, and which is now called Internet of Things and cyber-physical systems. And of course, what I'm presenting is, of course, is not what I am doing. It's what all the group is doing. And so keep this in mind. It's mostly not me, but it's a big group of very talented people who are working in lots of projects. This gives you an overview of the current projects that we have here. I listed just the names because I'm getting out of space. So, but don't be afraid, because I will just talk about 3 of these projects. But just to give you an idea of the topics that we're interested in, so we deal with lots of energy or resource efficiency, how to use our middleware that we have to save energy, to make things a little bit smarter. We have been dealing with smart grids and with smart cities, so this is the main topic today. And lots of projects are dealing with Internet of Things and how to apply Internet of Things or Industry 4.0 to the industry. Then we have also some other projects which are interesting, like Bridge, where we focus on emergency management. Okay. But talking about Internet of Things, what you might have in mind is something like New Songgo in South Korea. This is a city, complete smart city that is being built, and it will be amazing. Also, another example is Masdar city in the United Arab States. So the aim was to build the first climate neutral city in the middle of a desert. But as you might have heard as well, there are some problems as well here in this city. So inhabitants don't feel very comfortable in this a little bit artificial cities. There is a lot of what you can do for sustainability and so on, but inhabitants should also be involved in it. So that's well, let's say, my perspective, which is more user-centered, is that technology is not everything. I will now present you some more down-to-earth projects, which are typical for the projects that we aim to. This is a project a smart city project where we wanted to make a city more sustainable, to provide a service platform for the city information systems, also to support new business models, and to include the citizens into the decision processes. And of course, one of the goals is to optimize energy use, but not only this. In the case of Almanac, it's also water and waste management were one of the main topics. This project is a European project, which was also among some of the partners in the project is also the Alexandra Institute, which did a wonderful job here. And the idea here was the use case is the city of Turin in northern Italy, and what they have a problem which is not common in northern Europe, but they have a lot of water leakage in their pipe systems, and they have problems out of that. And it's sometimes not that easy to discover these leakages in the system, and so we decided to build up a little build upon the existing infrastructure some apps that help them to report leakages, and also to get information if there has been some potential danger in the system. So the idea is that this is quite cheap to do it. It saves the utility money in terms of that they have less complaints, and it's less cumbersome to collect them. And the user can save some money on the insurance because they don't have the damages of it. And maybe also save some money in, for example, if there is a leaking toilet, which consumes a lot of water. And the insurance company does not have to pay the large sums for water-damaged houses. Okay. So what we had there were smart meters, which reported, for example, a water leakage. These were very simple smart meters for water. Then the user is being notified. He may call a plumber, and okay, I don't hope this that he needs to be restarted now. Okay, and then the user calls a plumber, and the leakage might be fixed. Here's an example of an iPhone app that has been used. As you can see here, the user has realized a little less consumption than before. The average is 25 liters. At this day, he has consumed a little less. He can get some details. He can report some alarms, and so on. And then on the other side, the city management has an app which provides all the information in the map. And then you can see some problems and notify your citizens of water quality issues. So, for example, if a pipe has burst, or if contaminants have been detected in the network structure. The other case is waste management. So we wanted to optimize the waste collection process, to optimize the fleet management, the route planning, and the process optimization. And then also involve at the same time the citizens to allow them to report abundant waste, for example. So also here we have realized two prototypes, an integrated waste management app for the truck driver or lorry driver, depending on American or British English, and an app for the citizens, which is then integrated into the reporting system of the city, and a monitoring tool for the underground ecological islands. So, for example, the truck driver has a route planning like this one. And then he gets a notification that there is a deviation of it, and it can replan out dynamically the route to collect a garbage bin who has been reported to be filled up. And in this garbage bin you have sensors in there that report the fill level. This allows a more dynamic planning of the route, and saves a lot of time, because unnecessary routes are avoided, and it can be planned more dynamically. And this is a view of the app for the citizens, where they can report, for example, that there has been an overflow of a waste bin, for example, and this is registered, and then someone can take care of it to get rid of the waste here. This is integrated into a waste management city of the municipality, so they get an overview of all the issues that have been reported. They can plan a workflow. And they have a report. Here you can see the created issues by the citizens. And as you can see here, this is just the upper part of this the ecological islands. This is a very big waste bin, which is underground, and it is. We have included some fill level sensors in there, so that you know exactly how the fill level is. These are placed in the old part of the city of Turin, and so what we do now is we collect in real time the data, and we have also some historical information. And we can now forecast how this fill level will evolve, in order to plan more properly how to collect these ecological islands in there. As you so here's the interface of the dashboard. You can see, for example, the fill level here is 56%, And then you have a predicted date when this should be collected, when it is full. Okay. So this is a very practical. So in the background you have some simulation models collecting the information and predicting when the fill levels are achieved. And that's it. Another example, also down to earth, is a decision support project. It's also a European project called Seam for Us, where mainly the goal was to save energy in the metro stations in Barcelona. So the goal was to save 5% under real operation conditions. And metros are really huge energy consumers. The Barcelona metro uses 63.1 million kilowatt hours a year. And a third of that is used just by the metro stations, not by the trains. So a savings of 5% is an equivalent of the average consumption of 700 households. So it's a lot of saving if we achieve that. So what did we do? First of all, we started with one very old metro station. In fact, it's the oldest one, the Paseo de Gracia. It was built already in 1924. It is nowadays a metro station with 3 lines in there. So you have 3 different metro lines. And a typical working day is accessed by more than 35,000 passengers a day. So first of all, we concentrated on the ventilation. What we found when we inspected this metro station was that they had a schedule. So you had big fans in the metro station here, where you get in the wind, and also you can see here it was operated in that way that in the evening it was open to get in fresh air, and then during the day the air was let out of the tubes. It was just working like that, full time, all the time, pumping air out of the metro station, and also using the metros itself to pump out the air, and pumping air into the station in the night. We changed it, of course. The other thing is lighting. At that time, they used the T8 technology, which is an old non-LED technology. We changed it to LED. And also the lighting was managed according to a predetermined schedule. And the lighting level was much above the regulation that was allowed there. So you have very strict regulations how the lighting level is should be in a metro station. You're not completely free to turn on and off lights there, but they were above that because they wanted to feel their passengers more safe. Okay, and then the last issue that we looked at were the escalators and elevators, and they were already optimized to local demand. So what did we do? We installed a lot of sensors in there. We collected air quality, also other parameters in order to get a more reactive and proactive control. And also the lighting and the escalator control functions were now changed to more dependent on the occupancy of the areas. And the fan control is then dependent on the thermal conditions and also on the air quality and the dynamics and also of the weather forecast. We took this into the consideration. We used very low power sensor network, battery powered, so you see some examples. We also used the camera in there to have an idea of how many passengers you have at the moment. You can see here there was a CCTV-based occupancy detection systems, which was running in parallel with the surveillance system. It's quite good for privacy reasons because we don't detect we just detect the density here in order to have an estimation how many people are in the tube at the moment, and so we can avoid any privacy issues. And then we use this, for example, to control the lighting system, and it's a bit contradictory to what you would expect, because we change the lighting, for example, that we turn off the lighting or turn it down when you have lots of people there in the tube, and during rush hours. This is because you feel insecure if you're completely alone in the tube. You need to see the end of the tube. But if there are lots of people, if your neighbor is very close to you, you don't need a lot of light to see him. So you can turn down the light level, and you can save a lot of energy by doing that during rush hours. So we also use some environmental monitoring, so the weather forecast to predict the needs of the ventilation. And then we estimated the future thermal airflow conditions of the station based on the past history. This model was also able to learn from the control history and adapt accordingly. So what did we achieve at the end? Here are the results, which I'm quite proud to present because they're really exceptionally good. If you see, we wanted to achieve 5% of energy reduction, and we managed to reduce the energy consumption by 21% in the case where we applied maximal comfort, and in the case where we applied maximum savings, even 38%. There are areas that we were not allowed to control. For example, advertisements, some vending machines and so on, we are not allowed to control them, of course. So in total, it still results in a reduction of 13% in the worst case and 23% in the best case, which is very good. Okay, and then the last project that I wanted to present you, which is going to start in January this next year. It's a large-scale IoT pilot on wearables that I'm going to coordinate. And as you can see here is a large list of partners in there. But what is interesting is because it has to do a lot with cities. This project has two application domains which are also relevant for cities. One is the noise level in the cities, here applied to events. So you have events, large-scale cultural events, where you want to have a very good experience during this event if you are a visitor of the event, but the neighbors also don't want to get bothered by the visitors and also by the sound of the festival, for example. And the second area that we're looking at is security and safety in this area. So there are some challenges for large-scale cultural events. So inner-city concerts, festivals, pub areas, goose fairs, etc. We want to guarantee a high quality of this sound and want to minimize the annoyance for neighbors. Also, noise from large crowds in cities can be annoying. And at the same time, we are applying lots of large-scale sensors in there, where we have an idea where all the crowds are moving. So we can use this for safety and security, for spotting issues that might be out of balance. So improving the security and safety of people, and also providing some guidance in case of emergency. And of course, the goal is to find a good balance between amusement, security, and quality of life. So how do we want to do it? Looking into in the sound case, we will have some new sensors that are wireless. Some are installed in there, and we will collect all the time the noise level and use this for cancelling as well. So in the area you will have areas where the sound is being controlled by these self-adapting sound cancellation units. So the idea is that you have a stage like this one. This is on Tivoli. So Copenhagen is one of the cities who's taking part here. And you will have this sound cancellation islands all around the area. And in these areas, they could be in the form of a tree, for example, equipped with some loudspeakers. You should find spots where you can where the sound level is reduced, so that you can talk on the phone. You can speak during a rock concert. So that's the idea here. Okay. So we want to deploy and demonstrate IoT ecosystem security using large amounts of heterogeneous interoperable IoT-enabled devices, smart bracelets, smartphones, smart watches, lights, cameras, drones, and of course loudspeakers as well, and demonstrated in large-scale operating conditions. So we have more than 10,000 end users simultaneously acting in these cases, which is quite challenging. And here you have the 6 cities that we are addressing. So Copenhagen with the Tivoli. In Turin we have 2 large fairs and concerts. We have in Hamburg the port anniversary, and the Dome, which is comparable to Tivoli. And then we have the Fête de la Lumière in Lyon. In Bonn we have the big city event and Beethoven Fest. And here in Leeds we have a cricket and rugby stadium, so to apply the same on sports events. So that's the idea here. Okay, this is so here you can see an overview of all the pilots and all the different applications. And as you can see here, the total number of participants exposing is really quite high. So this is the main challenge in this project, to operate all these sensors simultaneously, and to come up with apps that are being used by all by the visitors of these events. So we need to come up with something that gives them some benefit as well, in order to track the users, in order to track the sound level and to reduce it. They won't do it just for fun. Okay. Sorry. I wanted to end with a visionary as well. Oscar Niemeyer, probably everyone knows him, is the famous Brazilian architect who had also lots of spirit in how to build a city. And I think it was the same case in Brasilia, the capital of Brazil. This was an artificial city, and the idea of Oscar Niemeyer was to build something in the shape of an airplane. So that was the original idea. So you can see it now this is from the space. that it still has this shape. And in the beginning of the city was, everyone was transported to that area, and it was really quite artificial. But now it's evolving to a real city, and it introduced some new. So people are really living there. So it takes some time, and you must learn maybe something from an old curve. So it's the Jerks-Dodson law, which they discovered in 1908. So what we need is an optimal level of what I mean is you can overdo something in the city. So if you look into the cities which are fully automated, there will be no challenge for the inhabitants. So in order to feel well in the city, you need a good arousal level. So you need to do something in the city yourself as well. The technology cannot do everything for you, because then the interest is falling, or it could be your performance will be very, very weak, or you feel uncomfortable in there. So I think smart cities are an area that are really emerging now and are very, very interesting. And I'm looking forward to see what type of developments we can come up here, and also what type of business opportunities are emerging in this area. So you have lots of data, you will have lots of problems as well with security and other issues in there, but there's a lots of opportunities and new upcoming problems, challenges. Okay, that's it. Thank you very much. Any comments or questions? Yes, please.
I think you want to say something. Be aware too smart. I just want you to clarify what you mean by too smart.
I mean, I was referring to the cities here, the examples that I presented you in the beginning. You have there has been some critique. Let me go back to this one. There has been lots of critique, for example, for Mazda City. This has been a great idea to build an ecological city, but people are not willing to move there. They feel it's a bit strange to live there. They feel very uncomfortable. Technology is helping them in every sense, but they feel useless. They feel something like a flower in an apartment, but their own task is neglected. That's what I mean, is that you can overdo something with technology as well, although your intentions are good.
Yeah. So I have a question on, thanks for a nice presentation. So what kind of sensors you use, which standard? Is it proprietary or?
Normally we try to use out-of-the-shelf sensors. So we buy them different. So for example, in the case of the metro station, we used out-of-the-shelf airflow sensors, CO2 sensors, and so on, and connected them to base stations in the India.
Based on the standard ZigBee or?
Yes, in this case was ZigBee. That's true. But we were using different all types of wireless communications: Z-Wave, Bluetooth Low Energy, in ocean, you name it. What I didn't present here is that we have in the background we have a middleware that we're using to connect all these sensors and actuators, and in the middleware we have enabled all different types of protocols. By the way, this is an open source middleware. It's called LinkSmart. You can use it if you want.
So what's the wide area connectivity you generally use? Cellular or Sigfox or any low power?
The middleware?
No, the wide area connectivity. The cloud or connectivity with the backend.
Yeah, that's well. In the case of the smart city, these are cloud services in the back end, and but in other cases, for example, where we apply it on industry projects, industry is a little bit more restricted, so they are running it on their own service.
So for connectivity, did you use a cellular or any low power like Sigfox? Because there are so many network connectivities available.
Yeah, we look, normally we look into what is already there. We use what is available. We try to avoid cellular networks because, or if we have to connect with cellular networks, we have a specific type how to collect the data so that we don't send every time. So it's normally not real time, but collected on intervals in order to save money because it's might be costly. Yeah.
Okay. Yeah. So you have a common IoT platform to run this, or is it common middleware?
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah. It's an open source middleware that we're using in all our projects that we're developing further, and yeah, there are already some commercial products built upon the middleware as well. Yeah.
Okay, thank you.
Yes, please.
What is the big challenge that you don't have any immediate solutions to regarding smart cities?
One of the, well, I think the last project that I presented, this large-scale IoT pilot, one of the big challenges is still how to manage all the simultaneously in real time the data of such a number of sensors. I think there have been some experiments demonstrating how to do this, but it's different if you apply it in the real world. You will face lots of real world problems if you apply it in a festival. So then there are the security issues that are connected to the sensors and devices. You might have dedicated attacks to the devices that there are lots of problems. Yes, please.
Thank you for the interesting presentation. I was wondering if in all these projects that data processing is done in the similar way. Is it in a cloud infrastructure or is it somewhere?
No, it's done differently. So we have done it with cloud infrastructure and also just with a single server, with a distributed system, but not at a cloud. That depends on the stakeholders in the project what is doable, and if they accept, for example, cloud services. So, for example, German industry is a little bit conservative with respect to cloud services. So they fear that their data could be lost. And so they want to protect it, and therefore, for example, in that cases we use some internal servers. But the architecture is flexible, so you could adapt it to different types of solutions. Yes, please.
I was thinking about very inspiring presentation, but your case with the Barcelona metro.
Yeah.
One thing that I thought was fascinating is that the many different facets you have to look at. You look at very many aspects.
Yes.
So what type of skills do you need to go so holistic into such a? I mean, often people solve the problem they understand, but you have to lift it somehow or get a more system-wide.
Okay, yeah. In that case, it was a European project where we had all the different type of experts in the project. Architects, people from the metro, from the facilities, and other hardware specialists in the project. So, yeah, it's very good to have a team with all this expertise.
So you had to create that framework or somehow.
Yeah, and to make it work, which sometimes is also quite challenging. that people talk to each other, and then they understand the same thing when they say something. That's the first thing. You need to establish a common language. Yeah, but it was very, very successful. So we, yeah.
Okay, any more questions for Marcus? Can we give him a hand?
I have it here. Yeah.
You have to take this one. I turn it on as well.
And how this? Okay.
Somewhere.
All pockets, all pockets full.
Put it on your belt. You can put it on the belt like this one.
You have to find your ways.
Okay.
Herman, there's a presentation here. I will take
This is one.
Yeah.
No.
That's not
No, this one. This one.
I'm going to turn that down.
Is it switched on?
Go. That down here.
It does.
Tick.
Ready? Good. Herman, there you go.
Good morning. I will now talk about standardization. So we already heard a lot about projects. The previous speaker, I'm quite sure, using standardized technologies. We heard about 5G technology yesterday, about research projects and so on. And now it's about standardization. Okay, sorry, this is... Yeah. First question to be answered is, why do we need standardization? And this is independent from 5G. Without standards, your ICT devices would simply not work. You could not afford them, and you could not buy them because shelves would be empty, nothing there. And the question is why? I'm quite sure you know why, so I give you the answer right away. Because standards ensure interoperability of products and services, which means a smartphone from Samsung connects to a base station from Ericsson in a network of T-Mobile, for example. Or you connect your laptop to the wireless LAN here and to connect to the internet and all of that. These devices are affordable because standardization is a tool. Doesn't work? Or?
Just like this.
Huh? Sorry. Standardization is a tool to create markets as large and homogeneous as possible to allow economies of scale. So the idea is to produce a device somewhere, anywhere, sell it everywhere. And standards also help to comply with regulation and legislation. And without compliance to regulation, of course, products cannot be offered on the market. So it's a mean to access market. So now, a few words about 5G. 5G is thought not only to be the next generation of mobile communications, but the platform for, let's say, the digital transformation in the future. So the ICT platform for transportation, healthcare, smart cities, agriculture, and even factories. And from all these different use cases, of course, there are widely varying performance requirements. That's why the 5G standardized system has to be quite flexible and built on building blocks. There is a tight time plan, so there are very ambitious plans to deploy these technologies. There is somehow a common agreement to go commercial by 2020. And this is driven rather by political and commercial considerations than technology. Of course, technology evolution is going on, and there will be some pre-commercial trials even for the Winter Olympic Games in Korea or the Rugby World Cup in Japan. The real commercial deployment, as said, is planned to start from 2020 on, and let's say the Olympic Games in Japan will be used to promote the technology in the Far East. For the time being, there is not yet a standard, a 5G standard. But it doesn't mean that nothing has been done so far in standardization communities. In order to explain how standards are developed, we use, well, standardization committees follow a life cycle approach, just like product development or technology development. And when we say standardization, then usually we have in mind to set a standard, which means stakeholders developing the standards come together and agree on a best solution. And this standard is a normative document. It's developed by engineers, for engineers, to be implemented in products. So it's normative, but before arriving at the consensus for a normative document to be implemented in a product, there is a very important phase of standards-related work, which we call pre-standardization, and this is very much about technologies, new technologies, evaluating those new technologies, assessing them, or also having in mind different business models and coordinate technology evolution among stakeholders and the like. And the result in this phase is not a normative document, but these are studies, these are reports, these are guides, these are white papers. And this has been already explored quite much. A few words about ETSI's different lines of developing standards. There are partnership projects, most prominently 3GPP and 1M2M, 3GPP for mobile communications, 1M2M for IoT, the Internet of Things, communication between machines. There are classic technical committees in support of European regulation, and we have so-called industry specification groups where we can reach out also to non-ETSI members to participate in the technical work and to make contributions to deliverables. So the decision mechanisms and participation mechanisms are somehow different. What is common to all of these activities is the IPR policy, which is FRIEND, which means a promise of companies to give away, to grant licenses on fair, reasonable and non-discriminatory conditions. Well, ETSI, a few words about ETSI. It's one of the 3 European standardization institutes recognized by the European Union. Our members, we have more than 800 members from all over the world. Manufacturers, operators, research institutes, universities, governments, and administrations. And they all together decide upon the program of work. It's completely developed bottom up. So the minimum requirement to start anything, any new standardization initiative is four members out of those more than 800 members have to support an activity and have to plan the timing and have to allocate resources. And then, of course, it's a question to which degree there is interest elsewhere and how many companies join the activity. The biggest activities bring together more than 1,000 delegates, and they work through hundreds of contributions. But there are also smaller, more focused activities like quantum key distribution, where we have 20 companies. It's very specialized, it's very sophisticated knowledge. So these are small groups. But they all develop normative documents, eventually setting a standard for products to be implemented and sold on the market. Now where we are in terms of 5G standards. Yeah, looking at 5G standards, yeah, okay, it's very obvious that standardization, although there are many different use cases and different priorities and timescales, eventually it's the industry driving standardization. And one of the biggest industries, of course, is the mobile industry. So actually the mobile industry, which means 3GPP, one of our partnership projects, has taken the lead and drives 5G standardization work. And they have taken an evolutionary approach, starting from the LTE standard, to enhance the LTE standard and to as a next step, to have more mobile broadband capabilities. But they aim at having a forward compatible system design so that later on more novel enablers, more revolutionary elements can be added to the system of standards. Like, for example, new radio interfaces in the millimeter wave range. So when we talk 5G standards, so actually we have in mind 5G phase 1 as defined by 3GPP and planned for a release in September 2018. And this is called the 3GPP release 15. And then they have already planned 5G phase 2 by March 2020. 3GPP release 16. The feature sets, they are discussed in the committees and agreed upon technological options and business needs. And I can't go into these details because this would go far too much. In this context, as said, 3GPP is a partnership project of ETSI. So what is done in ETSI and how can ETSI technical committees contribute to that? And here you see some examples. For example, the technical committee on satellite systems. They make contributions to 3GPP for the satellite domain to be integrated with a terrestrial domain in 5G networks. or Technical Committee on Intelligent Transport Systems, they provide input for vehicular communication. Or environmental engineering, they make contributions how to reduce power consumption in future 5G networks, and so on and so forth. Looking more into the future, there are several ongoing activities that develop additional enablers for the phases, for the subsequent phases of 5G. So beyond 2020. This is basically the millimeter wave transmission industry specification group for new radio in 3GPP, and also the backhauling, the front hauling, and the integrated front haul and backhaul. Then there is a reach out activity to content aggregation companies, content providers, to collect requirements for a converged mobile broadcast offer using the 5G standard. And so this is a requirements gathering, a cross-sector cooperation to find out what is needed in future 5G products to meet all these needs for the business cases they have in mind. There is the network function virtualization, ISG, so obviously a trend to use off-the-shelf hardware and to build virtualized functions on top of it for different networks. So this is a major contribution and regarded as a key building block of future 5G networks. It's actually the enabler for the network slicing. Mobile edge computing, which helps to bring down the latency, and also next generation protocols. So I'll sketch a few, let's say, to give you an idea what this all is about. All the documents, the reports, the deliverables, the standards, they can be downloaded from this link you see at the bottom of the page. So the idea for network function virtualization actually is, it's very much network operator driven, who want to get rid of all these proprietary network appliances in their networks, which makes it very complicated to administer, to configure and all these devices, and also to deploy new services. And so the alternative approach, which is constitutive also for 5G, will be off-the-shelf hardware and virtualized network functions which are orchestrated flexibly and of course delivered from software vendors. Then the mobile edge computing, it builds a service environment next to the base station or even on top of the base station in order to have very low latency applications, for example for traffic control, or could also be applied in a factory environment. Again, all the specifications can be downloaded from the link given at the bottom in case you are interested in the details. Millimeter waves, so in a first step the group looks into the V band between 57 and 66 gigahertz and the E band. Moving to higher frequencies will result in very small cells, and all this, the traffic generated in this very small cells in a mobile network, has to be deployed, has to be transported by either by optical fiber or by millimeter waves, which allows very high data rates. And last but not least, of course, the question is for very low latency applications in 5G. The question is whether TCP/IP, is fit for purpose. So this group, ACISG Next Generation Protocol, they look into the shortcomings of traditional internet protocol stacks and develop alternatives, having in mind requirements from 5G, from future 5G systems. And this is also, they already made a contribution for the study phase in 3GPP. And this is very interesting ongoing work. It has been started this year in January. And of course, there is more work relevant for 5G going on. ETSI has a role to play in spectrum management in Europe. ETSI develops the so-called system reference documents where the industry defines their need for spectrum to be allocated for 5G in the millimeter wave range, for example. TCRRS, the reconfigurable radio system, they also develop schemes to share spectrum, which is also one of the key features, expected key features for 5G. And of course, machine-to-machine communication, the idea is to optimize the machine-to-machine communication standard developed in 1M2M, and which can be based on top of 5G connectivity. So this is a joint evolution actually taking place. This brings me to a few closing remarks. There are no functioning affordable 5G products for sale without standards, for the reason mentioned. 5G drives innovation in all sectors. It drives digital transformation, which means there are two aspects: digitize what can be digitized and make digital what cannot yet be digitized, and everything connected. Because this does not solve the problem how to make money with all of these technical opportunities. The standardization work is built bottom up by our more than 800 member organizations from all over the world, covering all the emerging regions and the developed countries, so US, mainly US, China, Japan, Korea, Europe. Early pre-standardization projects are very important, and you have to start early to come together and evaluate technical solutions and potential business cases to jointly develop, to coordinate technology evolution and to coordinate market development. And this has to be done before a normative standard to be implemented in a product is set. There are many pre-standardization activities. They have been ongoing for 5G already for several years, but now they are entering the normative phase. So we can expect formal standards soon, according to the 3GPP within the next 2 years, let's say. And but I also wanted to mention, some of you might be working for universities or research institute. Research input is very important in this pre-standardization phase, where the discussion is all about identifying the best solution to set the standard. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Alex. Do you have any questions for him? Thank you so much.
Thank you.
And the next center is Steve Newsman from our local tower. And I have your presentation here.
Don't worry, I just forgot my.
No, you can come up here again.
Det er ikke baggrund.
Det er en PDF, tror jeg, han har sat den så.
Det er en PDF, der.
Ja, kan den ikke bruges?
Der var også en PowerPoint.
Ja, så går nok PDF'en. Kan den laves til noget? Kan vi lave den som en... Vi præsenterer den som...
I think on the view there was a rotate.
Yes,
There's a rotate.
that's good.
Rotate view.
And then it's
Counterclock, ja. Det er en, hvad der hedder PDF. Kan vi lave den som
full screen.
fullscreen og så til at præsentere?
Full screen up. Okay, thank you. I'm very honored to be here today, especially because we are here in Aarhus at this summit, and Therma is headquartered here in this city. And today I'm going to be talking on where we are spending a lot of our time and effort in terms of innovation. Therma is the largest Danish defense and security company. We have about 1,300 people employed. We have a revenue about $200 million. But everything we do is technology driven. We are a technology company, and I'm not going to go through all what we do. I'll pick one topic, and the topic I have decided to use for this speak is actually related to one of our key areas, which is our radar technology, where we have been providing radar systems since the 50s. So we have been doing that for a lot of years. And when it comes to radars, and especially if you look at radar systems in surveillance, we are one of the leading companies when it comes to airports, to harbors, to coastal lines. We have more than 2,500 radars installed in the world, operating every day, tracking where aircraft are in the airports, managing the traffic of ships around harbors, protecting sovereignty around coastal lines. And then one of the new areas, which is in relation to energy, into windmills and wind farms is one of the topics I'll go a little into and talk a little more about that. We are, as I said, we are technology driven, and if you look into, I'm not going to go through every detail in this presentation, but it should give an indication of that this is a continuous technology field. I mean, you have to apply as the technology becomes ready, as you can do something more, you have to utilize it and bring it into your products. And we've taken a lot of innovation over the last 15 years in our radar technology, going into becoming, in terms both of the solid state and gallium nitride technology, but also software-wise, in making the whole radar software defined and applying that and moving into tracking and automation in the field as well. And we will continue to do that. But the topic I'd like to bring into this speech is really one of the cases, one of the areas where we use our radars, which is a fairly new area. And that is in relation to the energy sector, where you talk about putting up wind farms. With the whole rush there is today about getting more green energy and wanting to put up very large wind farms overseas, it actually creates an issue with the existing installations that are around the world, around airports and so far. And let me try to explain what the problem is. The problem is if you want to put up like 100 windmills at sea, you typically do that in an area where there might be something else in proximity. It could be an airport. And this actually shows a little what happens to some of the existing radars that are around airports. So it could be another one, but this is a particular Raytheon radar around an airport. And what it shows is that when you have a huge area of windmills operating overseas, the existing radars cannot detect anything around that area where the windmills are. The reason is that you have the big turbines, the blades are rotating, and they're creating a big interference in that area, which really means you lose the track. So if you have windmills close to an airport, and you see, and you want to track for safety reasons, the traffic going in and out of the airport, you actually get blindfolded around the windmills. And becomes a major security issue. So what happens is that in effect, you're not getting the allowance. So even though you would like to put up the windmills and you want to establish the wind farms, you're actually being told from the regulation that you cannot do so. The authorities will not allow it to happen. And there's been a number of cases where the wind companies have applied for getting licenses to set up wind farms, which have been objected either by Pentagon, by airports, by other types of authorities, and have actually been a prohibitive facet of moving forward and setting up the windmills. So as a radar company, we focused on this problem when it became aware to us that there was a problem in that field. We were already at that point in time a leading company when it comes to coastal surveillance, when it comes to looking overseas. So could we actually fix that problem? What could we do? Could we change our technology, our algorithms to solve this problem? So we put some research into this, and just to show a little case we did. This is actually a case done in the US where you have an existing big wind farm. This is actually over land, but you still have them placed there. And you can see, I don't know how many there are, but maybe 30, 40 windmills in that area. And what we have demonstrated here is that we have taken a small aircraft and flown it in and over the windmills, and we're able to keep track of that, even as it flies in between and above the individual windmills. And that's actually a hard thing to do, to filter all the noise out and be able to do such a clear track. But it has meant that being able to do that and being able to actually keep track of that across the windmills fixes the safety case that I presented before. So in the UK, we work very closely with NATS. NATS is what does the air traffic control institution in the UK. It's actually a private company, but it used to be public, but it has a public task. And we worked together with them to demonstrate that we could actually create the safety case around a number of UK airports and demonstrate that you were allowed to put up the big windmill farms. And that led to a number of trials and also authorizations to go through that. And if we look into that today, we have now our systems installed outside a number of UK airports. The first one is operational in Liverpool. We are in Newcastle, in Glasgow, in Edinburgh, and about to get into Glasgow as well. And you have to think about that in the UK you have very large windmill parks in sea. And some of the companies putting them up is actually Dong Energy, a Danish company who are actually behind establishing those huge windmill farms in the UK neighborhood. So we are the first company who have now been able to fix that problem and then being able to move forward with that issue. Now, a little elaboration here, because normally our users, the ones who buy our systems, would be some kind of authority, either a military or Coast Guard or a harbour authority or an airport authority, and they normally would make budgets where they would sit down and make planning of how to spend the public money, and it would be a very long planned process. In this particular case, it's a very different scenario, because the ones who really want to get this problem fixed are the energy companies. Because as long as they cannot put up the windmills, they lose revenue. So if they can do anything to shorten the time, to take out some of the prohibitants, something that could prohibit them from doing it, they can actually finance our technology by the energy they can generate as long as they can be allowed to do so. So what actually happened was that we had to find a business model. How do we get the money from the energy companies to finance putting up our technology in an airport? And we had a lot of talks about that. Could we do it by selling the radar as a data, providing it as a service? Would it be the energy companies buying it, and what if you had more energy companies? In this particular case, it ended up being that the energy companies paid the airports to do the establishment, and then it was Nets who became our customers. But the money came from the energy companies. But I wouldn't be surprised to see over the coming period that we would see business models where we would actually be directly involved with the energy companies on a service model, which would be a very new way of selling our technology. So it will create some new momentum. One of the other things that are very interested in the UK is to free up bandwidth. And the UK have a specific initiative which is called the Spectrum Release Program, which basically is to free up bandwidth, I guess, in relation to 5G and other new requirements. And our radar is in the X-band, so what they have found is also that they can actually take out some of the existing radar systems, move them to a different bandwidth, and if they are able to demonstrate the safety case by that, they can also begin freeing up and replacing old radar systems with our systems, and by that giving free up frequency. We hadn't seen that when we started investing in this area. We didn't think about it as being something that could be of benefit to frequency. So again, we had to rethink, what is actually the business case? How do we go out and sell our products where the real reasons might be to move the technology into a different bandwidth to free up some money for other reasons? So suddenly you can say the financing of doing this shift may not be the technology itself, it might be to be able to actually sell the bandwidth once it's freed up. So it's an interesting perspective to see how you can look at the business models and where does the money come from. I'd like to shift my presentation a little more into technology, a little more into automation, because what we do in many of our cases is also to see how can we automate things, how can we make things less, requiring fewer resources in terms of manual work in surveillance. And what we have done and what we're working with is a number of different cases. I mean, this is an example where we, a fairly simple case, well, not simple, but in an airport where we actually are able to identify and track what are we seeing, and automating that so we can do that. We're doing the same in the naval area, where we're now looking at different types of classification. And here we are both talking about classification of type, what type of object are we seeing, but even down to the level of individual. This is a ship we know, we've seen that particular ship before. So if you have a case where you, for instance, are surveying in around an area, the more you can take out of the worries you have to think about. If you know it's a ferry that goes between here and there, well, then you can filter that out. You don't need to see that because it's a standard situation. And by that, actually, again, using the automation and classification to make the operator more efficient. And the last part I'm going to go a little more into deep to is one of the programs we're working on right now, which is for NATO on the Alliance Ground Surveillance Program, where you want to automate the surveillance from radar images. If we take a little about what we can do today, and if we look at the case surveying overseas, we are today able to do a level of classification based on the behavioral thing of the radar tracks. So basically, we are doing the tracking. We can detect how things are moving, and based on the behavioral of those tracks, we are able to do a level of classification. One of the things we're doing is with behavioral classification is obviously trying to utilize not only where the track is and also how fast the track moves, but also what are the changes in you know, when it goes from one speed to another speed, and what does that mean? Who can do that? I mean, and use that as part of the classification. The NATO decided some years back to establish a new surveillance system based on Global Hawk drones, and are in the process of buying 5 aircraft. They'll be used to set up surveillance where NATO decides they want to do that. And our task in doing that is really to use the radar data from the Global Hawks and automate what you actually see, and do an automatic target recognition and classification. The images we're getting are synthetic aperture radar images, so it's not electro-optical, so we're actually talking about radar images. And to be able to do an automation here, you need to train your algorithms. You need to have some reference data you can use in doing the classification. Here we have worked closely with the Technical University of DTU, who are experts in radar technology and in image processing. And we have actually, together with them, created an image database of known objects, which we use to train our algorithms and our system on. And by that we can have different types of targets and different levels of resolution. So we can put in artificially what we are looking for. We're using CAD models of the objects we would like to identify, and then we're creating this database with different levels of resolution. And then we're training our algorithms on that ground. And if we look into what we really are doing is be able to categorize and classify things. And with this particular case, we are down to a probability of detection of 92, which is pretty good. So we should be fairly secure that what we are seeing would be this image. We're still not working on live data. We're still working on simulated data and on our artificial database, but this system will go live in 2018, and then we'll begin to really train the system with this. I put into the slides some references. You can look afterwards and see some of the articles that's been written in this area. So that is what I had in mind. So back into a few headlines. I mean, As I started saying, we are a technology-driven company. You know, even though we are the largest Danish company in defense and space, whenever we go outside of the Danish border, we are a small company. We have to choose our niches and decide which fields we are, and one of the areas are in the radar. But we're very encouraged also to move into a new field like wind energy and windmills. We hadn't expected that some years back. But again, you know, if you think about what are the issues and can you actually fix that, do you have the know-how or the understanding to do that? Then it's quite nice to be able to do that. So that is what I had in my speech. Thank you. I'm happy to take any questions. Yes. It's pure software. It's pure software based. So the example I gave with the AGS program, that's a software. So we're getting the data and we're doing ground processing of the data.
You do a supervised training of this neural network.
We do a training of the network with the artificial database. So we're using the database to kind of train the algorithms. And then, as I said, we haven't had live data yet. And obviously, when you get the live data, we will see how good it is. But the idea is not to, I mean, the idea is really to filter out things you know. The more you can take away and say you don't have to worry about that. Here are the 3 things you need to put your attention to. That is really what we try to do. Is really to realize that you have only so much you can consume. So the more you can automate or take away, and you only have to concentrate on those things, then you can be much more efficient.
Well,
Okay.
last time.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you to all the very inspiring keynote speakers. We now have a coffee break. And I'm sure if there are any questions